Hey all, Quash Daddy here. Today's guide will be perfect for those who might not know the ins and outs of the game and are still trying to find out exactly what's considered a good play, or even just trying to figure out if they're playing the game correctly. I'm sure there's been a lot of cases where players will win or lose rounds and have an incorrect understanding of why the win or loss occurred, or just straight up do not know why the round went that way. I hope to use this video to clear up the air on that and provide you with the correct methodologies for properly playing the defensive side in this game. As of the time of recording, Valorant's meta is still very defender-sided, and getting those free rounds while you are on the stronger half will be a great way to gain that sweet elo. As a quick overview, we should set the stage of how to properly defend in Valorant and establish the correct win conditions for the defending side. So, that means that as a defender, your team will win a round under the following conditions: killing all of the attacking players before they get to plant the spike, defusing the spike after it has been planted, regardless of whether or not you kill the attackers in the process, or the round timer runs out without an attacker planting the bomb and at least one of the defending players still being alive. When comparing the win conditions for each side, it does appear that generally speaking, it is easier for the defenders to come out with a win, as they not only have more ways in order to secure a round, these conditions put pressure on the attacking players to make a move. However, this does not mean that defenders get an excuse to let up on the pressure. It's very important to be focusing to be where to be at the right time and reacting to the correct moments, as giving up free rounds on the defending side will give a lot of momentum over to your opponents, which can be very tilting. The basis to getting a strong defensive start in Valorant is how you place and spread out your team at the beginning of each round. One of the biggest advantages you get from playing on the defending side is your positional advantage. Being able to simply hold angles and create that advantage for yourself against the attackers is a huge swing in your favor, so you need to make sure that you can abuse that as much as possible. Getting free kills and securing the numbers advantage will be extremely critical in reducing the attacking side's options, so you may as well do it with as much execution as possible. You should always try to mix up the spots you sit in as well when defending to create stronger mix-ups to catch the enemy off guard, as well as identify the right times to push up and the right times to stay back and play sight. For example, although there are times it's great to be pushing up as a defender, there are times where it definitely is not good. There's a trade-off between getting that information and moving your players to other sites once you know that yours is clear, and just playing defender side like an attacker and getting picked off by an attacker that was just holding an angle. One annoying thing about Valorant's site design is that there's an insane amount of corners that you need to check, so it actually works in your favor to be holding sight and holding different angles as well. A big component that relates to positioning is rotating your players to the correct parts of the map at the right time. I already have a video on mastering rotations, so I'll let you guys look into that a little more if you need to, but overall, you need to make sure that you are adjusting your player counts to match for the amount of pressure the enemy is putting on, while not overextending yourselves as well. When you give up another site for free in order to increase the strength of your hold on the first site, you need to make sure that your team won't get cucked by the potential rotation from the enemy side. You want to make sure that you aren't over-rotating your players, because that is arguably the number one way that players leave holes in their defense, and for not much reason either. Rotating players efficiently and not having them run across the map maintains your high defensive pressure while making sure you are adjusting to what the enemy is trying to do. Making clear and concise comms with your teams will be the cornerstone to making this work, so there's a lot to consider in that regard. In relation to comms, making sure that you have some method of communicating with your team will be super important to know that you and your teammates are all on the same page and are able to keep up with whatever happens each round. If you're a female player or child with a higher pitched voice, I am sorry for your loss, and honestly, if you're not comfortable, you don't have to force yourself, since this is just a video game. However, Valorant does have a very elaborate ping system as well, and I also have a video on that. Both videos I've mentioned today will also be in the description. Some good fundamentals on comms in general, though, will be that you need to make sure your calls are very clear and as concise as possible. You don't want your teammates to be confused as to where they need to go. You need to call if they have the bomb, which agents are where, how many they have, and if they are burning ultimates to engage, things like that. If you're on the other side of the map and you aren't getting an accurate depiction of what's going on in the game, your team will never be rotating at the right times and you will be caught very easily. Another thing to note is that you should try not to talk too much when you're dead, as from that point you cannot provide too much info that isn't already shown from the situation. It also puts a lot of pressure on the other remaining alive players, and therefore it should just be best to leave them be and have them play their best. One thing that would be helpful as well is adjusting the style of your comms to the teammates you have. Sometimes players will have different understanding of the callouts or the map, or even implications of your callouts. So in some cases, you can be really concise and your teammates may understand directly what they need to do, and in other cases, you may have to be very direct and clear with what you're trying to say and asking your teammates directly to rotate it over to certain places. If you can't talk or don't want to use your voice, you can communicate this over chat or with pings in order to help out your team. No matter where you are or what method of communication you're comfortable with, it's all about making sure you can mesh with your team and give them the right information they need. Overall, although you don't have to think as hard about your defensive strategy and what you need to do to prevent enemy pushes, you still have to make sure your execution is on point and that your team is able to answer the enemy as clearly and as efficiently as possible. Defending is a component in Valorant that is hard taken for granted, and since every map is generally defender-sided, you want to make sure you can abuse this advantage as much as possible.